Yes, coming up, an astonishing story about graffiti in London with the TfL boss accused of lying by a campaign group. You'll want to hear more about that.
And elsewhere, breaking news this morning, Sir Keir Starmer has written a letter to grooming gang victims on the panel, urging them that he will focus the inquiry on what he describes as Asian gangs being disproportionately represented in some areas. We'll get all reaction to that coming up next on Saturday Morning Live. Stay with us.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, a law firm representing several women involved in the government's grooming gangs inquiry, they've written a letter to the Home Office with several concerns about the process. And
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has now sent a letter to the survivors in the inquiry panel admitting crimes were disproportionately committed by Asian men.
Well, joining us now is the director and solicitor at Switolski's, David Greenwood, behind that letter sent to the Home Office. David, thank you very much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live. You sent a list of several concerns to the government. One was explicitly about concerns about the broadening of the scope of the inquiry. And in this letter now from the Prime Minister, he says it will have a focus, but he's appeared to have given himself some wiggle room there.
I haven't seen the letter. I apologise, but my clients were concerned that this inquiry was going to be broadened out to look at other types of abuse when back in January and then June, well, in June actually, to be all about the regular street grooming by Asian men of Pakistani descent.
Why is it so important, just in your words, David Greenwood, knowing these women as you do, for them that this inquiry isn't broadened out, that it is so specifically on these Asian grooming gangs?
Well, you've got to remember that they were in it for, varying lengths of time, but sometimes years. They've experienced all this. They've seen it on not just to themselves, but to countless other that they were associated with at the time. They see it as a significant issue, very significant issue in towns and cities around the country. It's very important for them. It's very important for the country also to get a handle on what's been going on, and if it's possible, to work out how to stop it. So they don't want it diluting. It was as a grooming gangs inquiry. That's what it should be, so far as they're concerned.
And David, you've also, representing Fiona Goddard, your firm Switolski's, has written a letter urging Jess Phillips to provide an apology after Fiona and other survivors said they felt like Jess Phillips was saying that they were lying with those concerns about the widening of the scope. Because, of course, as you and I both knew, they were approached in September with that question: do you want the scope widened? Do you expect that the Minister will provide that apology? And how important is it that she does so?
Look, I don't want to go into to that issue. I've said all I need to say in consultation with Fiona in the letter. I really don't want to comment on that. But suffice it to say that, yeah, everything's said in the letter there.
Thank you very much, David Greenwood, for speaking to us this morning. And Charlie, obviously, you've been following the story very, very closely for a number of years. Jess Phillips is in the firing line here. Survivors are saying that they won't rejoin the inquiry unless she is sacked from her job. Is it time for her to go, or does this letter from the Prime Minister sort of smooth that row over a bit?
Well, I've just been speaking to another solicitor called Richard Scorer. He represents Slater and Gordon, head of abuse law there, and he's concerned that this letter from the Prime Minister doesn't actually specifically commit to that focus that so many members of the panel are worried about. We've also got another member of this panel who has remained on the panel, desperately wants this inquiry to go ahead, but has also called on Jess Phillips to resign. So regardless of the views of the government and whether or not they are going to commit to this specific focus, which clearly is what Baroness Casey wants. She called it, her audit earlier this year was into group best child sexual exploitation and abuse, brackets, grooming gangs. Couldn't be more clear what she was referring to. But then at the same time, you've got people on a panel asking for it to be widened, serious questions about how that was organised as well.
We're now 4 months on from that Baroness Casey review. She said that she wanted this inquiry to be done quickly, and yet here we are, and we still haven't even decided what the scope of the inquiry is going to be. Would it be too cynical to suggest that perhaps the government is dragging its feet deliberately on this? They're hoping that this all sort of manages to play out before an election takes place.
The government has resisted very strongly those claims, and I think a problem that Jess Phillips and the government have got is that they included that rejection as part of the wider rejection of the claim that they were widening the scope, saying it was misinformation and untrue. Now, a lot of survivors heard that and thought, well, we have those concerns because you've asked us about that. The charity organising the panel asked them, do you want the scope to be widened? So I am surprised that she hasn't apologised, actually, because so many survivors need to have that trust that this inquiry process is taking them seriously. And if a minister makes suggestions that they were lying about something when they've got proof, and when we saw it over a month ago, it's just very strange that the minister hasn't apologised and at least just said, look, I didn't know about that widening scope, etc. But of course she did. She saw the message herself.
It is a very, very odd story. But a Home Office spokesperson said the grooming gang scandal was one of the darkest moments in this country's history. That is why this government is committed to a full statutory national inquiry to uncover the truth. It is the very least that the victims and survivors of these hideous crimes deserve.
The Home Secretary has been clear there will be no hiding place for those who abuse the most vulnerable in our society. GB News have also reached out to the Prime Minister for a comment on that new letter released today.
Still to come, Transport for London have